Is Denji a victim? Yes. Yes, he is.
Denji is a victim of many things. We're introduced to him as a victim after his father died and debts were passed to him. He had never known love, had only seen intimacy in porn magazines that are shown around the Yakuza areas, and was subjected to brutal work because of the issues that were passed down to him. He is introduced as a victim, and the idea of this continues throughout the rest of Chainsaw Man as he finds his way in life. Even though it's a pretty messed up one with devils and whatnot, it's weirdly a coming-of-age story in a way. And I think it'll continue this way because of how it's been set up during the time that Makima was in the story. So let's do a deep dive on all the things that have been discussed on whether or not Denji is a victim, including the recent chapters such as chapter 166 and 167. I'd like to note that I've watched a lot of videos of people's opinions on Chainsaw Man, of the recent chapters, and of the interviews with Fujimoto, as well as consuming the actual media. I have been collecting notes about this for a fair while now, and have had some of these opinions since I first started reading Chainsaw Man. But after seeing Ozymandias, I hope I'm saying that right, video on the subject, which has a different perspective to the majority of popular videos, it really made me want to further discuss it. I'll link that video below because it is quite interesting. They've done an incredible job, and as a small creator myself, it is amazing to see other small creators get noticed. The Chainsaw Man manga is pretty incredible in my opinion. The first part stuck with me, and the way they ended that first part with the Gun Devil arc honestly is how a normal manga series would end altogether. But it continued after that, and I'm always on the edge of my seat wondering how they'll top that. When the anime was announced, there was a lot of hype around it. People are rightfully excited about the series, which is why I want to take a closer look at it, especially since we have so many new fans to the series. As stated, Denji unfortunately starts his life early on working for the Yakuza. His father left his debt to him, and working in this way, not being able to make a living, barely having any food, is how we're introduced to him. He's at the bottom of the barrel, and we know from the start that he's already faced terrible things, and will have to work his way up in life. He meets Pochita, the Chainsaw Devil, as a kid, and feels comfort in that. It's a love and friendship he has been craving, without knowing what that is, and because Pochita is a devil and not a human, Denji doesn't quite see that at his age. We all know he dies and becomes Chainsaw Man due to Pochita saving him, becoming his heart. This is when we're introduced to Makima. Once you've completed part 1 of the manga, you know that Makima is in fact the Control Devil, and has been searching for Chainsaw Man / the Chainsaw Devil. When she finds Denji / the Chainsaw Man for the first time, she does what she can to make him trust her, and to be able to keep him close. Because of Denji's upbringing, we know that he is in need of love, guidance, friendship, food, and more. Makima sees this and exploits it. Asks for a hug when they first meet, craving affection, and she reciprocates, seeing where his weaknesses lie. Throughout part 1, we see this grooming process that takes place as Makima focuses on control, exploiting Denji for nefarious purposes. Now, you could say that any evil villain would do this, as it is the point of the story that a villain would exploit the protagonist in this way, regardless of gender or sexual orientation, but it's the way in which a powerful adult figure of authority exploits the minor figure due to the minor's need of love, connection, and intimacy that showcases grooming. A trope that we often see is the "I was born sexy yesterday" trope, and Denji's character having no schooling and no parental figure somewhat falls into this trope, especially because of the subject of this manga. He mistakes sexual favors for love, as we see throughout the series. Makima is able to leverage this in order to further her own agenda, in a similar way to how we see grooming portrayed. This is often looked at in Chainsaw Man as sort of a joke, especially when Denji says things like, "If I rip you apart, then that makes your dreams worth less than touching boobs." But his outlook of a shallow dream, which is mentioned several times throughout the manga, serves a few purposes. Yes, what he says is funny. It also takes a jab at all the other shonen that say that they can get through it with the power of friendship and their dreams, but also to show how little he has in life, so in turn, how little he wants or needs out of life, further showing he's an easy target in a way. The character of Aki is also a showcase of taking normal shonen ideas, like the quest for revenge, and flipping it in order to discuss the trope, as well as poke fun at it. Denji, of course, during these moments of intimacy, accepts these moments, and wants it to happen, but later down the line of the story, you see how what he wanted was not sex, but love. And this is something he's still kind of figuring out, as a lot of teenagers are. We actually see this with Himeno's character. Himeno, an adult, gets drunk, also pushing a minor to get drunk, and then steals Denji's first kiss, then proceeds to, well, you know. Eventually they end up back at her apartment. She's on top of him, on her bed, and offers to sleep with him. Denji rejects this offer, as he is actually after more than just plain sex. It's that intimacy and connection. As he is infatuated with Makima, he rejects Himeno's advances. She does accept the answer of no and goes to bed, and they end up having a decent friendship after this. But this whole relationship started with sexual assault and a ploy to get a minor in bed. Yes, I know the age of consent in Japan is 16, but even so, the forcefulness of a full-grown adult to someone under 18 is really something. Most of this is shown in a comedic tone, but the repetitive pattern of this will weigh on a person. Also, if you're mad at Himeno and not Makima, then I don't know, man.
Power, who has one of the best female relationships with Denji, as they end up having a kind of brother-sister type of relationship. In the beginning, Power exploits Denji's willingness in order to help her. If he saves her cat, he gets to touch her breasts, so he goes for it.
There isn't another sexual scene between the two of them after this, and for the most part they're on a level playing field. Both being fiends, they're similar to each other, and Power eventually stops looking down on Denji.
I just want to note again that this relationship starts with manipulation.
There is some debate about how this character's name is pronounced. In English you would probably pronounce it Riz, but in Japanese I feel like you would pronounce it as Reze, something like that, as SE is a hiragana and then you would put a ductin on it that would make it Ze. But for now, let's just call her Riz. Yet another character who manipulates Denji in the start of their relationship is Riz. Riz first meets Denji in the rain by a telephone booth and takes an interest in him. As readers, we're unaware of her manipulation at this point, and it genuinely seems like this could be someone who is interested in him. She teaches him things as if he was getting a school education, which is unfortunately lacking, and Denji warms to her in a way that feels different to his relationship with Makima. We are then shown that she was manipulating him in order to kill him and take his heart, aka Ochita, the Chainsaw Devil. Through all of this, Denji still maintains that he cares for her and refuses to kill her. He still dreams of running away with her. We see in a scene between Makima and Riz that this was part of Makima's plot, yet another manipulation in this need for control. The thing that makes this particular relationship really sad is that Riz seems to have actually cared for Denji in the end, and may have wanted to run away with him. But due to the control that Makima has, she would never have been able to really do this. So we and Denji don't know what could have been. This pattern is purposeful, and to not see that it is purposeful means that you're not really reading the story, especially in this first part. As we learn about Makima being the control devil, this type of grooming, breaking, and manipulation creates control. At the end of part 1, the only person he has left is Makima, which is what she wanted, and it's of course where he goes. Broken person is easier to control, and someone such as Denji, who has already come from a broken life, becomes the perfect target for someone such as Makima. It's interesting to think about how Denji, being the voice of this story, impacts how viewers also view the story. He puts Makima on a pedestal. A lot of anime-only watchers also do the same, as this is how she's seen, but perhaps that will change once we get to the end of part 1 in the anime. There's a lot of manga fans that also think this way, wanting Makima to do the same to them, what has been done to Denji, not realizing what it actually all means. However, I do think you are able to like a villain without romanticizing what it is they did. You can appreciate good writing and how a character is written and not condone their actions. The way Fujimoto has written the character of Makima is really interesting, making her an incredibly interesting villain, but I don't condone what she did in any way whatsoever. Her acts are horrific, and the way she broke Denji is so depressing. Good writing shows that, and it's something that I am appreciative of. We all understand that part 1 is meant to break Denji. It is obviously stated within the manga, but people still take a lot of these parts as a joke, even though it is a big part of the story, especially leading into part 2, where we're introduced to Yoru and Asa, as well as some other characters. Something I enjoyed about Chainsaw Man was that it wasn't in a school setting, which already set it apart from other shonen series, even though Denji is 16. That being said, I never thought I'd be so happy to see him go to school. We know that he has never had the opportunity of going to school or getting an education. We meet a variety of characters here, including Fumiko. Fumiko is a 22-year-old adult, yet, like the other female characters of the series, she tries to instigate a sexual relationship with the 16-year-old Denji. When Yoshida introduces the two of them, without warning, she gropes him, ignoring what Denji was talking about, making his voice irrelevant to her. She further inquires about his virginity and even suggests that she could be his first. After everything Denji has been through and the way that Makima has broken him and groomed him into being her quote-unquote pet, Fumiko quickly puts this to use, seeing that Denji follows her commands and licks a nearby corpse at her request. When they end up going on what you could call a date, they are attacked by a group of men and Denji questions Fumiko's alliances, asking if she was trying to trap and kill him this whole time, much like the characters before her have done. We can already see how much everything is beginning to weigh on him. We are told that she is in fact on his side and isn't an enemy so far. But this is just another layer on top of everything else that has happened to Denji. Yoru and Asa are incredibly interesting characters, especially as they are combined in one body, visibly appearing as Asa to others. She is considered a living fiend host. Yoru, the war fiend slash devil, one of the 4 horsemen after the control devil, uses objects and people as weapons. The more important or close the subject is that belongs to them, the more powerful the weapon. The strength of the weapon is proportional to the amount of guilt Yoru and or Asa feels. Yoru is after the Chainsaw Man, but has no idea that Denji is Chainsaw Man. That being said, she has coerced Asa into finding a victim to fall in love with them and turn into a weapon. The person of their choosing ends up being Denji, continuing the pattern of manipulation. Asa is less confident than Yoru, as she is awkward in a variety of social interactions. Yoru often takes over to force certain things to happen. We see this being pushed further in recent chapters. Yoru again takes over Asa's body in order to sexually assault Denji. Note that this is against Asa's will. Although she may have started to have feelings for Denji, she's embarrassed by the action as it's not the action she chose to do. Denji also appears to not know what to think. Everything that has previously happened to him, but also his want for intimacy, he appears to be conflicted with what has happened and what to think about it. Denji has a breakdown prior to this, stating he wants to stop having the want to be intimate with women, especially after every single time something remotely similar has happened, it was a plot to kill him, rather than because they actually wanted to be with him. And of course this and more, being a horny teenager, is on his mind. He wants to be able to think clearly, but is just unable to do so at this point in time. I also think that without the comedy to some of these scenes within the series, they would be far too depressing, and people may want to tune out of it. Yoru states to Denji that she can cut his dick off in order to solve his problem, already putting him in a state of worry as she threatens violence. During this, she ends up shoving her hands down his pants without consent, again threatening violence as she does so. She continues to push further, with Denji eventually finishing in her hand. After this, Denji appears distressed, looking at Yoru/Asa, as Yoru continues to tell him that she does not like him, later leading to Asa and Yoru fighting each other on the incident, as Asa did not want this to happen. We see a lot more of their perspective than Denji's, as part 2 of Chainsaw Man is from their perspective. We don't get any internal monologue from Denji, making this more shocking as a viewer. All we get is what appears to be a distressed look on Denji's face, and it makes you think back on everything else that has happened to him. The way he has been broken by others, and how it has led to this point. He didn't have a voice here, he didn't have a say, and because the narration is not from his perspective, it further hits that point home, showcasing it more as an assault than anything else. I know that this topic has been somewhat controversial recently, as people debate whether or not he is an SA victim, but with all of this that has happened before, even with the comedic tones to allow you to digest what is going on, it's evident that Fujimoto is pushing these ideas even further than he already has, especially with a lot of these ideas having to do with control, which was heavily explored within the first part of Chainsaw Man. Several months ago, it was announced that Chainsaw Man would no longer be in the Shonen Jump magazine in print edition and was going to solely be on Jump Plus. A lot of people thought that this was because Chainsaw Man was, quote, falling off, or because Shonen Jump magazine didn't think that this part was going to live up to the hype of part 1. With everything that has happened recently, it seems to be more because of the subject matter that is going to and has been explored so far in part 2. I would not think that the recent chapters of Chainsaw Man would be considered appropriate for the print publication of Shonen Jump magazine, as it is targeted towards young boys and we are starting to push further and further into an older, more mature category.
I think these ideas will continue to evolve as the story goes on, and we won't get a full picture until we're closer to the end of the story. But there are a lot of interesting ideas here. Let me know what you guys think down below, because I am genuinely interested in having more of a discussion about this and hearing your thoughts. I know a lot of people have varying thoughts about this and about the series in general, but I am very intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. If you're interested in more anime related content, then don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.